Welcome to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast, where we celebrate Minnesota's incredible fiction authors and the stories that make our literary scene so vibrant. I'm Rob Jung.
And I'm Michael MacBride. Together, we're the team behind Bell Cow Productions and the Bell Cow Catalog, a digital catalog designed to connect Minnesota authors with readers, libraries, and indie bookstores.
The catalog will be heading to all 377 Minnesota libraries, 80 plus indie bookstores, plus those in border cities such as Sioux Falls, Fargo, Superior, and La Crosse.
And now with this podcast, we get to bring those amazing voices to life. Every episode features one of our herd members talking about their books, their writing journey, and the stories behind the stories.
And before we start, let us apologize for all the cow-related puns you're about to hear.
All right, let's dig in.
We are blessed tonight on the Bell Cow Herd podcast to have Lynn Garthwaite with us. Lynn is a friend from Minnesota, for Twin Cities Sisters in Crime, is a regular at Minnesota Mystery Night. In fact, she's usually one of the first people to show up.
Yeah.
Always
Grab
nice
a table.
That's always nice to know we're not going to have an empty house when we do this. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And we should be sure to, let's see, I was trying to remember, I think it said 11 books, screenplays, and then most recently Starless Midnight. Is that correct? Is that the most recent book?
It's not the most recent, but it's the one that fits this category because it's my mystery thriller. So
Gotcha.
kind of what got me in the door for that. So yeah.
Wonderful.
So are there more mystery thrillers in your future?
Well, I was going to be writing a sequel to this one, but something happened on the way to the forum and it hasn't happened yet. I have it mostly outlined and I've written part of it, but I keep getting interrupted with other projects I want to do, including the screenplays. So it hasn't happened yet.
So a question on the way to the forum, did you run into Zero Mostel?
You got the reference. We're of the same generation. Yeah, there'll be youngsters who don't know what we're talking about. But
They probably don't.
Yeah.
They're probably not watching this podcast either.
yeah.
So it's all equal. So
Yeah.
tell us about Starless Midnight. What I mean, that's really out of the wheelhouse of what you wrote beforehand, and how did you happen to drift into thrillers and mysteries?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question because you're right. When I started writing books, it was children's books, although
Yeah.
they were, my initial foray into that were little mystery books. So I was in the mystery field and I read mostly mysteries. So it's not really a surprise that I ended up writing one eventually. I kind of always thought I would. But the interesting thing about this story, Starless Midnight, is it started way back out of college when I was first interested in screenwriting. I'd taken a couple of classes in that and whatever. And that I thought, I love to write and I love movies. Seemed like, a perfect connection. And so I took some classes and things. And I'd written one big budget, big star vehicle kind of screenplay at the request of a producer. And by the time I got it done, she had left the business. And this happened after I'd been doing this kind of thing for several years. And I got just really discouraged. And that's when I switched to writing books. But all these years, there have been several characters in that screenplay and a couple of specific scenes that have just stuck with me. I could not let them go. I mean, they kept coming up over and over again. And so finally they ended up in this book. I mean, the main characters are based on that screenplay I'd written, and several of the scenes and kind of the overall tone of it all were from that original screenplay. So it had been like gurgling inside of me for years before I finally thought, I just have to write this and write it in a novel form.
Wonderful. Now, Rob asked you about the book, but we kind of jumped the gun because, well, he knows you very well. I don't, and I'm guessing a lot of our listeners don't. So give us a bit about your background. You already talked about writing screenplays in school and that kind of thing, but, where'd you come from? How'd you get to this?
Yeah.
Catch us up in between.
Well, Minnesota, born and raised pretty much my entire life. I've always been a writer, even as a kid. And I was the type that like, I'd be in the back seat of the car, my dad driving, and I'd look out the window and see a family on a lawn. And before we got to the end of the block, I'd have an entire story made up in my mind of who that family was and what they were doing. And it was just like, just always that way. And then I was a history major in college, which sounds a little off, except that when you write term papers all the time, you really hone your writing skills. And I think
Sure.
that that was a huge help for me. And I did end up writing, one of my books is a history book. So I did end up using that a little bit there. But just writing in general has always been my thing. I can remember when I was just a kid, people would ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always wanted to be a writer because who wouldn't want to be able to just tell these great stories? You know, I mean, it just seemed like such a thing. So that's that. Now real life jumps in and you have to take a day job to pay the bills and things like that. So right out of
Darn.
college, I worked in a brokerage house, and I was like a sales assistant to a couple of stockbrokers. So, which was totally out of my wheelhouse, but I learned a ton. It was great. Um, at one point for 11 years, actually, here in Bloomington, Minnesota, I was a police reserve officer. So that also satisfied a lot of my interest in crime and things like that. So
Sure.
I don't know, it kind of all just, glops into one big package to end up where I am now.
How did you get into, was it Durkle Smat,
Yeah,
the younger books? I'm curious,
right.
like, how did that come about then? How did you start doing those?
So at the time, my kids were in elementary school, and so I was definitely into young kids' books, And I also worked at the time in an elementary school media center, so I was working all day with kids and books. So when I decided to get serious about writing again, that was my passion at that time, children's literature. And because I was always a history or a mystery reader, I started writing mystery books for kids. So those are aimed at it's a series of books. I wrote 4 in the series. They're aimed at the like first and second grade reading level. So they're just little mini mysteries. The same 5 kids keep solving mysteries. There's some fantasy. One book is about a time traveler. It's kids and adventures and stuff like that. I had envisioned originally writing like 20 books in the series, but by the time I'd finished the 4th book, I kind of had other things I wanted to write. And so I was sort of, waylaid by it and never got back to it. But so that's kind of how that started. But so I clearly always loved mysteries, and I've always loved writing.
I've got to ask you where the name Durkle Smat
Yeah,
came.
that's fun. When I was so ensconced in children's literature, I noticed that the kids love the goofy names of characters. The goofier, the better. And so that was part of the plan. So, I just thought about it for a long time, tried to come up with some names, and the name Durkle Smat, the first and last name, came all at once in my head. And so that's kind of how that happened. So then I started thinking, I've got a Toonie Oobles and Bean Lumley, and Fiddy Bublob, I love that name. But I used to do a lot of author visits in schools at that time. And so I would talk to kids about it. And I found out the funny names were part of the draw for them, as I kind of thought it would be. And then the kids would be shouting out, when you write your next book, you should have a character named, and then they'd throw out their own goofy name, whatever. So that it really stuck, and it was fun. But I did at one book fair, I had some elderly lady come up to the table and look at those books, and she was kind of fiddling with the name, and I explained, oh, it's Durkle Smat. She couldn't quite pronounce it. She said, that name is horrible. You'll never sell any of these books. It's like, all right,
Wow.
fine. Yeah, everybody's got an opinion.
Everybody's a critic.
Yep.
Yep, indeed. So tell us about your screenplays. What are you currently working on?
Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to have a producer pick up my Starless Midnight, my mystery thriller. And so I had months, we spent time on the phone talking, doing storyboarding and stuff. the film version never is like the book version, so there's a lot of changes, and most of the changes he suggested I really liked. A couple of them I wasn't crazy about, but I thought, this guy knows the market, he knows the business, so I'm going to go with his thoughts. But because of all this conversation, it reignited that old interest I had in screenwriting. And so I found this, I found a couple of different places where I got webinars. I've been taking a lot of webinars on to hone the craft. And then this place called Stage 32, which is designed to match you up with other producers. That first producer is still shopping that my Starless Midnight, but all of our work came to a conclusion, or we were done with all the planning right when the writer's strike hit. And so everything had to be set on the table and you couldn't do anything. So a lot of time has passed and things have changed in the industry partly and stuff. So, but it reignited this interest I had, and I just kind of went at it full bore.
So I've played around with screenplays a bit, and I've had fun adapting other people's books, but I'm curious because I've always heard like people who have adapted their own, either they can't do it, they're like, nope, I can't separate myself from the book, or they love the opportunity to kind of have another swipe at that, to be able to re-edit it basically.
Yeah.
Did you find which camp? I mean, it sounds like you did it successfully. So like, I assume you're in the camp of enjoying it mostly, other than a couple of the edits along the way, but.
Well, partly. Actually, I when I first started talking to this producer, I started writing an adapted screenplay of it. What he was going off was like a lengthy summary of the storyline. So he hadn't actually read anything beyond that. But here's the thing. It's so hard to cut things from your novel. Yeah. And you need to for time. And so the completed screenplay when I was done was 150 pages. And just to give you the idea for listeners, there's supposed to be about 100 pages of screenplay for a 2-hour or regular feature length. So I had a lot of work to do, and I actually have not addressed that yet because I got going on so many other projects. So that's still on my to-do list to get back to rewriting that. But because he went in such a different direction, his idea was to pitch it as like a limited series, like a 10-episode series for Netflix or one of the streamers. And so it changed the whole layout of it. And we'd be able to add things and whatever. So I never did go back at that time to rewriting that adapted screenplay because it no longer really applied. But I'm still thinking about doing that. So.
Yeah, I love those limited series because you get a chance to really live in the characters and know them. And so you would have the exact opposite where you'd get to expand that world instead of shrinking it and chopping things away. So.
Exactly. When he first suggested that, I had that boom moment, like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. So yeah, I was very excited about that.
Cool. So have you ever been approached by other people to, take your book or any of your earlier work and turn it into a screen, and do a TV series or a movie, thing like that?
Kind of. This company, Stage 32, who I said offers these webinars, they also offer you the opportunity to have consultation phone calls with producers and studio execs and that kind of people. And I've taken advantage of that many times. So what you do is you send the script and you get on a 1-hour phone call and they give feedback. So they call it notes. They give you notes. And they're great notes. I mean, I love it. I've taken their advice to heart and have done rewrites, and I know my scripts are better because of it. So it's been very helpful. And a couple of times I've had in these conversations, somebody has said, I really like this. I'm going to keep thinking about it, but send me something else you have, which to me is like this, like you float on the ceiling for a little bit with that. Yeah. So I've had that. And then there was another one. I have also created 2, what do they call it? Like reality shows, unscripted reality shows. And when I mentioned that to a producer I was talking to about one of my scripts, she said, oh, I'm looking for unscripted reality shows. Send me what you have. And she was really interested in one of them. And she said, I got to talk to my team and we'll get back to you. And the team put the thumbs down on it. So she was very interested in it, but the whole team did not go for it. So I've had like nibbles. Let's call it nibbles.
Sure.
The reason I asked the question is because I got solicited for what was allegedly a Netflix series, and luckily I didn't spend any money on it, but I spent many hours putting together all the material, and it was a flat-footed scam,
Oh, yeah.
you know. But the good news is I've got a trilogy all teed up for for a series. I just got to
Yeah.
find some place to pitch it. So you gave
Well,
me, I wrote down stage 32.
yeah, well, and the producer who I'm still in touch with, we still get together on the phone, once a month or so. Um, he's indicated that he's looking for other stuff. So I sent him like the little one paragraph blurbs about some of my friends' books. I know a lot of writers, both through Sisters in Crime, and I'm a part of another big writers group. And so I sent him about 6, blurbs about other books that I thought would make something good on the screen to him. I don't think any of them have gone anywhere, but I thought I'm happy to share. I have this little bit of an in, and I'm happy to share it with people. So,
Okay, we'll talk off the air.
all right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's wonderful. Before we go too much further away from Starless Midnight, would you read a section from it for us?
sure. I'd love to. I picked out a section. It's right after. So my main character, JD, has returned to her hometown. Her grandmother has died and left her her home. And JD had lived in that home until she was 16. And then she and her mother fled the town, and JD has never understood. Nobody's ever explained to her what happened. And she knew growing up that there were secrets in this household, secrets in the family. And so part of her coming back, she thinks, I'm going to finally solve these secrets. Unfortunately, she has some other issues that come along, which is part of the thriller part of it. But this is a place in the book where she had just been looking through some old photos and still wondering what happened in this house. JD put down the frame and thought about the memory. Grandma had been so matter of fact about the way her husband had just left. So many secrets. She wished she could ask 1,000 questions. Looking at her grandma's closet door, she held her breath a little as she opened it, and then smiled at what she saw. A row of simple, practical blouses hung on the rod, along with 2 efficient dresses for the occasional funeral or special occasion Ellie attended. The boxes on the shelf were probably stuffed with those silly hats. Was she ready to look at those yet? Although a little dust had built up on the floor under the hanging clothes, JD recognized her grandma's orderly nature. A laundry basket had just a few things waiting to be washed. 6 pairs of shoes, all comfortable and practical, lined the floor. An array of hooks on the back of the door held a couple of belts and scarves. She remembered her younger days when her grandma's closet was a perfect hiding place for her to curl up with a book. The exposed bulb in the ceiling had a long string she could reach even when she was quite young, so she'd open the door, pull the string, and then hide herself in the back corner and get lost in other worlds. Something nagged at her now, and she parted the hanging blouses to look at the back of the closet. It's so funny how things seem so much bigger when you're a kid. This closet was enormous, wasn't it? Her view of the back wall through the parted blouses confused her. The wall was the same color as the rest of the closet, but instead of drywall, it looked like it was made of wood instead. She didn't remember that, but then it's not something she would have noticed as a kid. And clearly her grandma had repainted the entire closet because she was sure it used to be kind of a tan color, but now was more a modern mauve. She straightened up the blouses and was about to leave the closet when something made her turn back for another look. This time she slid aside the blouses at the end of the rod and could see that where the painted wood met up in the corner with the drywall, a small hook protruded. Curious, she put her finger into the bend of the hook and pulled. Nothing happened, but then why should it? Maybe a belt or something had once hung there. Still feeling like something wasn't quite right, she tried turning the hook and found with a little effort she could turn it a quarter of the way to the left. Once she did, she heard a quiet click. The wall moved a bit, and now with a push, it gave way. Hidden hinges allowed the wall to swing in like a door. With a little effort, she was able to squeeze in past the opening and peer behind the makeshift door. Here was the rest of the favorite spots she remembered from her childhood. Her grandma had built herself a safe room hidden in the back of her closet. So grandma had a lot of secrets.
I love that.
That
And
was
you addressed like the being bigger as a kid, but then it actually was like
It really was. Her memory was correct. Yeah.
I love the verbal picture that you painted because I could feel the whole thing. I was waiting for the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to come to fruition.
That's right.
You really did a marvelous job of taking a simple, you know, a still life basically, and putting the reader right into the middle of it.
Thank
I,
you.
I was separating the blouses so I could see the wall.
Yeah. Well, and I did another writer's trick is that's the end of that chapter. And I didn't go into the next chapter continuing that. The next chapter we're someplace else, something else is going on. And so I'm hoping the reader hangs with it because they want to find out what's happening. So
Absolutely. So nicely done.
thank you.
So we tend to, toward the latter part of these podcasts, uh, put you through a drill. We
Okay.
call we have several names for it.
I'm laughing because it's evolved so quickly.
Yeah,
Sorry.
really. It has several names because we never have settled on one. But it basically is a fight, the lightning round
Yeah.
of quick questions that have nothing to do with writing necessarily, but are designed to help your listeners and the viewers get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
So, Michael, do you have one off the top of your head to start off with?
Well, I mean, the childhood thing has me. One of the questions I love is thinking about like those childhood moments or those things from childhood that stick with you and kind of make you who you are today or, still resonate in some way. And I'm curious if there was a closet that you used to explore or if there's, some childhood memory that still hangs with you or made the Lynn of today.
Oh, unfortunately, nothing cool like that. But I will say when I was I'm going to say about 8, my best friend and I used to make up stories. Our favorite show was Star Trek, and this was the original Star Trek with James T. Kirk. Um, and we would make up our own stories, what their next adventure was. And my job was to write them down, and her job was to illustrate because she was pretty good at drawing kind of cartoony figures. So I spent a lot of time writing based on other things I was watching. So I think I was informed a lot, maybe in my fantasy world, by things I was seeing on TV.
Almost writing spec scripts, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So, childhood movies. What
Ooh.
kind of movies did you go to when you were a child?
Oh, going to, I don't remember going to many movies. I mean, I was immediately going to say like Wizard of Oz and Mary Poppins and things like that. Um, I honestly don't remember going to a lot of movies when we were kids. We might have, but we were of modest means, let's say, whatever. So that might have been something we couldn't afford very often. But yeah, I was a big fan of the kind of fantasy, the big, you know, like Wizard of Oz type movies. That kind of things totally stick with me.
Oh,
I remember there's this period of time where I stayed at my grandmother's house over the summers, and for some reason they would run movies on the TV. And so that's how I saw Jaws. Obviously, it was severely edited. I saw like The Bad Seed. Like I saw lots of movies that like I
Yeah,
was like, why am I? And now as an adult, I'm like, why was I watching those? And why were they
yeah,
on television at the time? But
yeah. Oh, and that
and
reminds me of one time the bedrooms were upstairs and where we lived. And I remember coming down late at night. My parents were watching a movie on TV, and I came down the stairs. TV was right there. I could see just in time to see it was like a jungle area, and there was some guy with a spear right in his eye, screaming. And I like, oh my God. I mean, to this day, I remember it. I was just a little kid at the time. I think I crept back upstairs and probably had nightmares all night.
oh
so your
man.
therapist has made a lot of money out of it.
Yeah, who knows?
Nothing like being traumatized. Okay. So what do you cook that's really good? If I
Ooh.
was going to come over for dinner, what would you cook? Maybe
Um, I make a pretty decent lasagna. Not that that's complex. I mean, it's a pretty basic kind of thing, but so that would probably be the thing that would stand out. I, I grew up in a household. My heritage is all Scandinavian, Swedish and Norwegian, and if you know that group, we have fairly uninteresting palate. Not a lot of spice, pretty whatever. So that's what I grew up eating, and cooking because I learned from my mom. So I can't say that I could ever present a real gourmet kind of meal, probably without a lot of tutelage, but something like a lasagna I can do pretty well.
Okay. But then the real question becomes, in light of your heritage, do you like lutefisk?
No, well, I've never tasted it, so to be honest, I don't think I would like it. Ugh.
Well,
So,
but
yeah, I was going to say, you spend all the time at the schools and the libraries and looking at the young adult or children's fiction. I'm curious, like, what children's fictions resonated with you as a child? Like, what were some of the books that were foundational that way for you?
Yeah, well, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was mentioned before. I definitely was drawn to mysteries, even young. And I read every Nancy Drew and every Hardy Boy, so that was a classic. Yeah, and anything that had anything like a secret passageway or like Aladdin and the Magic Lamp, anything like that, magic and intrigue and things kind of out of the ordinary. Those are the things I was drawn to.
I'm surprised you don't write, science fiction or
Yeah,
Fantasy?
epic
yeah,
fantasy.
yeah. It probably is kind of unusual, and I don't read much of that anymore. Interestingly enough, I read Asimov and stuff when I was a teen and whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's not what I choose as much anymore. Although one of my writing friends did write a wonderful trilogy that's a sci-fi, and I read all three books, and they were fantastic. So,
Here's one, multiple choice.
oh,
Oh boy.
Underwood, Tony Bennett, Lady Gaga, or Andrea Bocelli.
oh, what was the first name you gave?
Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett. Oh, okay. Tony Bennett would be the one because I was a big fan of the crooners, the Sinatra and yeah, trying to think I'm blanking on all the names, but that would have been my style. So, and I actually, when I was a police reserve officer, one of my colleagues in the reserves was Tony Bennett's nephew. So that was kind of fun.
Wow, you have like a direct path there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're like besties.
Yeah, right.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask about your friend and other local authors. What are some of the books, I guess, that you automatically buy when someone puts a new book out there? What are some of those authors that you immediately grab off the shelf, or that you're
Well,
eagerly waiting for?
yeah, everything by William Kent Kruger. And I personally haven't met him. Almost everybody I know has met him, but I have not. So I'm trying to think of, and also another local one. And of course, I'm going to blank on his name. He died a few years ago. He wrote,
Flynn.
pardon?
Vince Flynn.
Yes, Flynn. That's it. Shoot, what's his first name?
Vince.
Vince. Yes. Okay, that's the other one I loved. And I go to the same dentist he went to. So, it's like just being family. It's just everything just connects. So,
Yeah. I don't know if you knew this, Lynn, but back when Minnesota Mystery Night was at Axel's, Vince and his wife that was their hangout place.
oh, cool.
Axel's
Yeah,
and Rose. Yeah.
that was before I joined. Yeah.
So, well, do you have any questions for us? Anything that you would like to tell us or your readers or your listeners or viewers before we sign off for the day?
I just always tell people, and especially when I used to do author visits at schools, I'd tell kids, keep reading. Every book is a fantasy, every book is an adventure. And also try writing. There are a lot of people who maybe think about it and don't give it a shot. say, try, get your ideas down on paper, take some classes. The Loft in Minneapolis is great for that. So just give it a try. It's not for everybody. I mean, and also the other thing you find out, as much as I love writing, I also feel like it's grueling sometimes. It's not like it's just all fun and games. It's really hard, it's hard to put together a story with compelling characters and that kind of thing. So, but I definitely keep reading. That's my thought.
For sure. We'll be sure to include links to where people can find your books, but I'm just curious, do you have a favorite local bookstore that we should be sure to plug for you?
Well, Once Upon a Crime is definitely a good one. They have a couple copies of my books there. So yeah, that would be what I'd point to.
Cool.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lynn. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah.
I've been during this whole interview here, I've been looking at your page in the Bell Cow catalog,
Oh,
and it's really a good picture of you.
oh, before my hair turned,
That's
my hair now is the color when I was 3 years old. I've reverted to a 3-year-old. So
It's like
yeah,
a parabola.
I need to get a new headshot for sure. So
well, it is an exciting moment because of the catalog is rapidly coming to
nice.
fruition. So we're looking forward.
Nice. I appreciate that you let me be a part of that. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being a part of it, and thanks for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for being part of the herd. And don't forget, you can see this book and more from Minnesota authors in the Bell Cow catalog, heading to libraries and indie bookstores across Minnesota and beyond.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday with another amazing Minnesota author.